Hi everybody, welcome to the first ever instalment of Made Live, the Editor's Pick. This is a new event format launched by the Made In Group, the first one in Yorkshire. I'm Jo Young, I'm Managing Director of a Made in Yorkshire member called Additive-X, and we provide 3D printing and additive manufacturing solutions for customers all over the UK, but based in Ripon, North Yorkshire. So today I've been asked to be guest editor of the event. It'll be somebody different each time. And I had the opportunity to select 3 recent featured articles from Made in Yorkshire and speak directly to the 3 companies involved and ask them a bit more about the stories. So my picks are broadly on 3 topics, people, planet and technology. And first, I'd like to speak to Andy Gillings about the article from Taylor Studwelding. So how Taylor Studwelding machinery has developed over the years. So I chose this because I'm interested in their 35-year journey and how they continue to innovate as technology develops, something that I think all companies aspire to, but a lot all don't achieve it. So the article mentions that during these 35 years, they've enhanced their machinery's style and technology by consistently investing in developing their engineers' skills and filling gaps in the market. So Andy, could you give us some examples of that?
Yeah, so obviously technology has advanced a lot over 35 years, and our engineers have had to evolve to keep up with the rapid and constant growth that has involved. You don't necessarily find people readily available with all the skills that you're looking for. So primarily we've had to educate and train our engineers as we've gone along. This has meant for us having to fund college and university courses, attend external courses delivered by suppliers, giving us new technology or new manufacturing processes, or even just developing the skills in their own time. Many of our development engineers have been with us over 20 years. So that's a very long tenure by all accounts. But in that time, they've learned about the development of automation and robotics, gaining a more in-depth knowledge of welding electronics, which is something that's falling by the wayside more and more in this country. And several of the engineers have even learned to program and code themselves in their own time.
So have you encountered a lot of resistance?
From our own personnel, no, not really, but it's difficult. It's difficult then when you've got new people coming into the business who don't necessarily have the full skill set that you're looking for. Sometimes it can be a bit difficult to say, yeah, maybe you're not the right person, the right fit for the organisation at the moment, but maybe you could go and have a look at doing this. But it's especially when you're looking at long-term courses, college and university courses, you've got to take into consideration it's a large amount of time for your employees to commit from their personal time, not just from the work time. Yeah.
So just taking a different angle then, in terms of like advancing your machinery, you said in recent years the sales and marketing team have collected constructive feedback from customers to determine the best ways to advance the equipment. So how important has that customer feedback been to sort of the decision making and what you've done next?
Absolutely essential. It drives the direction in which we've developed our product range. So we're always listening out for not just what people like, but also where people have little gripes and niggles with systems. Quite a few of our more recent projects have been redevelopments or improvements on our older systems. So we've been redesigning all of our hand tool range for manual operation. Those projects have been driven largely on here are the things that our service technicians in the field have elaborated on in terms of ongoing maintenance, but also in terms of getting feedback from the customers of, oh, well, the gun's good, but it could be more accurate. So that led us to develop a high accuracy version of the gun for the customers that need it. And we've also had to, we've also developed packages for integrators to build into production lines, something that we'd not really thought about when we'd initially got into automation was, well, people people building production lines in customers' factories, they might want to integrate a robot with a head, or they might want a fixed point head with a feed to get the stud to have the studs in inline production. And we've developed those packages to allow integrators to be able to offer our systems across the board in production lines.
Okay, so are these some of the sort of niche subjects then that your engineers have had to learn?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, the niche subjects are definitely more automation based. Like I say, most of the engineers have been here 20 years, so automation wasn't as powerful a force in the market as it is now. So we have to as well rely to some extent on external help. The latest range of equipment that we've developed is an inverter-driven arc machine, which is something that we've never developed before, and we've got no experience using inverter electronics as a welding power source. So from the get-go, we are on that project, we were completely out of our depth. Those 2 units are now nearing completion, but we had to rely on an external expert who had experience developing welding equipment, more general welding equipment.
Yeah, so getting some help when you needed it.
Yeah. And he also tied us into experts who could help us with things like data capture and fault reporting on the unit.
Yeah, which I think could be, it seems like next level for a lot of people to be like, how do we go to that next level? I'm going to have to stop you there because I don't want to take up all the time. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm going to move across to Monica Green, who's from the Partners Group. So their article, different topic, people, certainty, the best perk you can offer your team right now. So I chose this because it seems to me the Partners Group share insight and offer practical advice that can help all of us. We've all got people at the heart of our business. So you're talking about combination of Brexit, pandemic, talks of recession, and feelings of doubt and anxiety for lots of employees. And it can be difficult for employers to address the issues if they haven't got all the answers. So what advice would you give employers in a situation like this?
Yeah, we've had a really turbulent last 12 months, and in business there's always change, and I think the last 12 months has been more change than ever. And I think as business owners and business leaders, you never have all the answers, you never know what's always around the corner, but you know your own business and you kind of have a strategy or a direction in mind. You kind of understand how you're going to get yourself out of it to a certain extent. And I think the point of us, we're a PR and communications agency, is very much make sure that you communicate with your team, because as soon as they don't hear anything from you, they will start making up their own stories.
They fill the gaps, don't they? They fill the gaps,
they gossip, they talk amongst themselves, and they don't get the right answers. And the longer you wait to start sharing your plans, the more uncertain they will feel. And people don't operate well. People don't like change. People feel very unsettled. And even it's just a little and often, and admit we don't know the full plan yet, but these are the things we're thinking about. This is what we do know. We'll keep you updated as things stand. This is what's happening. This is what we need you to do. And then when things change, you say, right, things have changed now. This is what the new direction is, or this is impacted on our thinking. So therefore, we're going to maybe have to change things again. But people will appreciate that because they can plan themselves as well. I think people would like to know what might lay ahead, even if it's bad news. At least they're thinking, right, I might be made redundant. I might have to go on a 3-day week or something, and then they can budget their own, pay their own mortgage and things like that. So we would rather know than you spring on them at the last minute going, oh, I've just had a really good Christmas, spent all my money over Christmas. If I'd known, I would have had a more frugal Christmas. So So
do you feel that people working from home inevitably adds to the kind of age of uncertainty because it's harder to communicate? Or do you think it just depends?
Yeah, it can be. I think we found it when everybody was working from home. It was great. You all jump on Teams or online. If you've got some in the office or some in the factory, some on the road, some at home, it's a more disparate workforce. So you have to find probably several communications channels that works for everybody. And ask for feedback. I mean, we've introduced with our clients, we've introduced internal newsletters, which they've never had before, and then got feedback on the content. Is it the right format? Is the frequency right? We've done WhatsApp groups. Just find the channels that work for you and make sure you don't exclude anybody. I think it's making sure that you're thinking about the different types of people. And if people are still working from home, again, remember that they're there. They might be somebody on maternity leave, that they should be included in communications as well, because they need to know how the business is performing and what their job might look like when they come back.
So you obviously do things pretty well in your organisation, but what if you're an employee working somewhere and they're not being given reassurance, nothing's helping them and they're really worried?
I think we ask for it. Again, I've heard of stories where people were put on furlough last year and were not contacted for 3 months. So their levels of anxiety must have been really high. And I would say if there's a HR department or your line manager or somebody can just speak to them, and it may be an oversight by the owners. They're sort of head down, fighting fires, doing their work, and they forget to look up and think about the team sometimes. So I think can you just give an update on where things are? I'm trying to plan for my future. What are the likelihood of this? And raise your concerns, and I'm sure sort of the business leaders will actually go, oh, right, yeah, we should have actually told you this. This is our plan. We'll have an announcement next week. And again, get a bit creative about it. Maybe do a little video that you can share around the team, or take people outside. I mean, we've just done a bit of a volunteering session this morning at a local park, and people who are still on flexible furlough came back in for that. And it's just a nice chat with the team to sort of see how they are and just think about people's mental health as well.
Yeah,
how they cope.
That's a really nice idea. I know people have been doing kind of like the online little events, and maybe they're having like a wine tasting or something, but that seems like a great idea, getting together outside, doing something that volunteering that's helping other people. Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to move to, last but not least, GSM Graphic Arts, and it's Paul Wright. It's about their article, Going Greener, Installing Solar Panels. So I chose this article because sustainability is an issue that all of us should be fully engaged with. And just on a side note, at Additive-X, we are embarking on a project where we really like to install solar panels. So I was like, right, these guys will be interesting to talk to. So it says also, for over a decade, GSM Graphic Arts has been zero landfill, whilst manufacturing our high-quality labels, nameplates, and graphic overlays. This sustainability is a manufacturing achievement that we are very proud of, rightly, but please could you expand on what zero landfill means? I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing it, as you say, for well over a decade now. Fair to say it's got a lot easier as more people and suppliers have come on board with this. But if you think go back a few years, we've all been to the tip with a boot full of stuff. It all goes into one skip. You know, the skip lorry takes that away, buries it in a hole in the ground, never to be seen again. Or so we think. That is until somebody wants to use that land going further on down the line, when potentially it could be contaminated with not just solid waste, it could be chemical waste, because there weren't really any controls, etc. in place at that time. So from a business point of view, you know, for us it's important that we don't behave in that way, because effectively we're burying a difficult to deal with legacy for people in the future. And morally it's just not the right thing to do. So we have to accept it takes a little bit more work to go to zero landfill. You need to separate out your cardboard and your metals and all these kind of things we're used to doing at home, but on a much larger scale. So it did take us a while to find a waste collection company who were zero landfill, and they were a little bit more expensive, it has to be said. But from our own point of view, we segregate out everything that we can anyway, and then the rest goes off to them, and they're put through a specialist processing plant, which is obviously much more efficient. So the typical kind of waste that you would see, your general stuff tends to go via that route. We have waste plastics, waste metals, waste chemicals, those kind of things. So all of those are segregated into containers, specifically designed for that waste, and then they'll go off for recycling. So that's how we avoid the landfill aspect of it. Obviously, producing waste in the first place is the bit that you really need to concentrate on avoiding, and put quite a lot of effort into that as well.
So it takes effort, but it can be done, and maybe a bit more expense, but it's not prohibitive. No,
it's not prohibitive. The expense is pretty short term, to be honest. And now it's easier than it was, as I say, going back a few years. You know, when you're looking at waste, I mean, a lot of people talk about lean manufacturing and things like this, and they'll look at the manufacturing process and they'll look for time wasting and tool setup efficiencies and that kind of thing. If you apply the same methodology to your waste streams, you will identify areas that will save you money anyway, which then can be used onward to fund other projects.
Good point. So it obviously matters a lot to the company, the sustainability and doing things for the environment in a better way. Is it something that spills into sort of the whole culture? Is it at every level of the organisation?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, within this factory, for instance, you've got machines that switch off automatically, you've got lights that switch off automatically with proximity sensors, etc. We've put all of that in because it's much easier to make it automatic, but some of those have come about through our suggestion scheme. We run a Kaizen suggestion scheme, and within that, there's a waste reduction element, you know, and there's a little reward for any that are accepted along the way. But it's quite a good vehicle for documenting suggestions, which then will reduce waste, save time, you know, and then cost, etc. along the way. And yeah, pretty proud to say, I think there's about 50% of the people on this site have gone and shoved solar panels on their roof. Some before the business has done it, some after the business has done it. So yeah, the guys are properly on board. And as you said already, Jo, you know, this is a long journey. So over that period of time, it tends to become ingrained rather than just going in with a big bang. And as it becomes more ingrained, I think people have carried that on to home as well, which is pretty good, to be fair.
Would you say that the solar panels was like the biggest project you've done, or is there something else that stands out over the years that was like, actually, that was something else that?
It's the single biggest investment that we have put into place, it has to be said. I mean, it's a 55 kilowatt hour array and an idea of cost of about £40,000. But already this calendar year, we've saved about 3,500. So by the end of the calendar year, you know, we're going to be saving 7,700, 7,800, something like that. So it's fair to say the investment time, the investment will be recouped over probably 6 years, something like that. So financially, it's the biggest project. It has to be said that the internal waste, you know, mapping and then those things probably took more man hours and more that was an effort for GSM, you know, to bring that in line. But we've put in place quite a lot of things here. You know, every light's LED, has been for absolutely years, as I say. Proximity sensors in there. We recycle waste heat into the factory. Obviously vent it out when we don't need it, you know, so the majority of our heating is from machinery that we have. The dryers that are mentioned in the article, for instance, we've put heat exchangers on all of those as well. So it's things like that all.
So as a final word, your advice to manufacturers and other companies looking to improve their own sustainability, what's the first thing you say, right, do that first?
Oh, well,
too hard.
Well, everybody's circumstances are different, aren't they? So if it's something you've got a genuine interest in, do the walkthrough, you know, really do the walkthrough with a real critical eye, you know, why is that getting thrown away? You know, what's that in the skip? Start there if you like. But what I would say is if you are struggling with that, the local enterprise partnerships do help you fund a day with an environmental expert to come do an audit. Now, normally that costs you about £1,000 to £1,200. You can get it for absolutely nothing. So if you're struggling, if it's, you know, to try and find a way through this, I would start there, definitely. A little bit of paperwork, totally worth it.
Lovely, thank you. So I've run out of time. That's all the questions that I've got. I want to say thank you so much to my guests from Taylor Studwelding from the Partners Group and GSM Graphic Arts. Thank you for joining and agreeing to answer the questions. Before I go, thank you to anybody watching and people watching again on YouTube. So this is a new event format, as we said. It's going to be held every 2 weeks, same day and time. It's going to alternate between the Midlands and the Yorkshire regions. And the next one is on the 7th of July. Thank you very much.